With the Oscar-winning, critically acclaimed blockbuster that is Frozen, Disney has finally gotten back in the zone. They brushed up with it with The Princess and the Frog, Tangled, and Wreck-It Ralph, but Frozen has made it official. Disney is back. But how is Pixar doing? Yeah, well, I'm not a fan of where Pixar began, and I'm not a fan of where Pixar is now. I am blown away by what was in between. Nobody can deny how good that string of movies was. But which one is the best? Through my casual research, the most common answer is Up. But I have to disagree. My favorite Pixar movie is WALL-E, but objectively, the best one has got to be The Incredibles. This movie took the world by storm. Its advertising was brilliant. It was critically acclaimed. It won an Academy Award. And most importantly, it made a buttload of money. Why exactly is it so good? Let's check it out. This is The Incredibles. We begin in a world that is pretty much a comic book. There are superheroes everywhere fighting crime. And they're not vigilantes either. They seem to work with the police. We follow a superhero named Mr. Incredible, who has super strength. He goes around saving people and gets married to another superhero named Elastigirl. You can guess what her power is. Things seem to be perfect, but then things start to go south. As it turns out, people start suing the superheroes for saving them. I guess reckless endangerment and property damage would be a problem when it comes to superheroes, but that's pretty contrived. It reminds me of the whole vigilante argument. It just doesn't really work that well. Even as a kid, I didn't really understand it. That alone would be weird enough, but the two actual examples they provide make even less sense. The first is a guy who sues Mr. Incredible for stopping his suicide attempt and injuring him. That is really stupid. There's not even an I see your point but here. The alternative is that the guy dies. I'm pretty sure that there will be more hurt feelings if he just let that guy kill himself. The same thing goes for the lawsuit for him saving a train and injuring everybody on board. What alternative is there? Did they just want to plummet off the tracks and die? Are people really this desperate for moral outrage? And the weirdest thing is that all these suits end up working.
It is time for their secret identity to become their only identity. Time for them to join us or go away.
To where? Space? This goes on for a while, and it eventually gets to the point where the government forces the superheroes to go into hiding. This makes no sense. If the first 10 minutes of the film are to be believed, people need their lives getting saved at any given moment. And what about the supervillains? Did they just quietly retire as well? It's made clear that keeping the secret costs a ton of money as well.
Someone's always in trouble.
I had to do something.
Yeah, every time you say those words, it means a month and a half of trouble for me, Bob. It means hundreds of thousands of taxpayers' dollars.
How is this any different? Well, whatever, we cut to 15 years later. The year is supposed to be 2004, so that would mean that things started to go bad around 1989. Wow, things really did fall apart once Reagan left office. Well, now we're in the Bush years, and Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl have a family. There's Violet, who can turn invisible and make force fields, Dash, who has super speed, and Jack, who at first seems to have no powers, but then turns out to just kind of have a little of everything. They're also friends with another retired superhero named Lucius, once Frozone, played by Samuel L. Jackson. While Elastigirl, now Helen Parr, seems to be well adjusted, Mr. Incredible, now Bob Parr, is not. He has a boring job, he has a mean boss, and feels like he should be doing more. So he tries being a vigilante. It does not go well. But then he gets an invitation to do something superhero-y, for money. It goes well the first time. Things get complicated when he is invited again. We'll get back to that later. In the meantime, let's talk about something else. There are two things about this movie that make it especially cool for kids. The first is the animation. This really does look like a 3D comic book. They have the angles, the colors, and the character designs. Everything, really. This movie has a cool, unique look, and it really works in the action scenes. The second part is the humor. I don't think that there's a single joke that didn't work. There are too many funny scenes to count. Most of the scenes with Frozen are funny, and all the scenes with Edna Mode, basically the superhero costume designer, are hilarious. But if I had to pick the funniest scene, it would probably be the directions argument.
The robot's in the financial district. Which exit do I take?
Traction Avenue.
That'll take me downtown. I take 7, don't I?
Don't take 7!
Great! We missed it!
You asked me how to get there, and I told you. Exit at Traction.
That'll take me downtown.
He's coming up. Get in the right lane.
We don't exit at Traction!
You're gonna miss it!
This movie hit the bullseye of the family interactions. It's incredible how quickly the movie defines these characters. My personal favorite is Helen, who was on mom mode all the time, and it is hilarious.
You'd better get going.
Now our kids are in danger?
Hey, if you suspected danger, why'd you bring
I
them?
didn't bring them. They stowed away, and I don't think you're striking the proper tone here.
There are the little things that make this movie great. Speaking of little things, the movie is great in the writing and the pacing of the story, too. It seems that every scene has a purpose, and any that don't seem to have a purpose make sense later. You know what I mean if you've seen this movie. One example of this is this movie's villain, Syndrome. He began where most psychotic killers begin, as a fanboy. Buddy is the biggest fan of Mr. Incredible ever. But it turns out that basing your entire existence on idolizing somebody isn't healthy. Mr. Incredible snaps at him, and he completely falls apart.
Only wanted to help, and what did you say to me?
Fly home, buddy. I work alone.
It tore me apart.
See? Fanboying is dangerous. Not to mention annoying. The movie establishes that Bob was too hard on him, but it also is made perfectly clear that he was still obsessive, ambitious, and too smart for his own good from the beginning. The idea that he was already crazy to begin with is strengthened when you see what his plan actually is. He builds an artificially intelligent giant death robot and then systematically sends retired supers one by one to fight it. Usually the superheroes die, but if they beat the robot, he upgrades it and kills them with it next time. This keeps going for what must be years, leading up to using it to fight Mr. Incredible. Then he uses the rocket to launch the robot to a city where he can defeat it and get the superhero glory he's always wanted. Wow. That is the most needlessly complicated and needlessly cruel plan ever. Surely there are easier ways to fake heroism, but my favorite part about the plan is this. What happens after that? Did he think that he could just repeatedly beat the same robot over and over? Did he think that nobody would eventually get suspicious? Or was he just planning on using another plan that would take like 5 years? I'm not sure that he thought this through, but that's kind of nitpicking. Syndrome is an excellent villain. He's intimidating yet sympathetic. He's despicable but still really funny. There are a lot of little touches to his character that I like. My favorite being that even after everything, he is still a giant fanboy.
I'm still geeking out about it. Come on, you gotta admit this is cool.
Oh no.
Elastigirl? Lame, 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 lame.
I really have to give credit to his voice actor, who strikes a perfect balance. Speaking of which, the voice acting is great across the board. The weirdest casting is for Edna, who is actually being played by the director, Brad Bird. I never would have guessed that. But now the reason why I decided to do this review. One of the themes is that if everybody is super, nobody is. It's basically the first, second, third versus participation medal debate. The movie staunchly takes the side of first, second, and third. Bob even brings up how he's annoyed how people often get awards for not doing much.
Yes. I can't believe you don't want to go to your own son's graduation.
It's not a graduation. He is moving from the 4th grade to the 5th grade.
It's a ceremony.
It's psychotic. They keep creating new ways to celebrate mediocrity, but if someone is genuinely exceptional,
This is not about you, Bob.
And I recently learned that because of this, people have interpreted that this movie, and by extension, Brad Bird, have right-wing bias. Look, as a certified and card-carrying right-winger myself, I guess I can see where you're coming from, but I think that using that to call the whole movie and the director biased is a little outlandish. It's not like Atlas Shrugged, where the conservative themes are the entire plot. This is just a theme. It's not even the moral. The moral is about family, and last time I checked, family is centrist. Or at least I hope it is. And it's not like that the movie said that this is the only way or the best way. Helen and Bob have different opinions, and by the end, it turns out that they were both sort of half right. And then there's Syndrome. He's not depicted as evil because he wants to equalize everything. He's framed as evil because he's willing to commit systematic genocide just to live out his childhood fantasy. But let's just throw all that away and ask this. Even if the movie did have a right-wing bias, would that really be such a bad thing, at least from an ethical level? The movie gives the impression that a person can repress their own powers just as much as others can. If the ultimate message is to find the strength within and then rise above and beyond, would parents really complain? But that's just hypothetical. In reality, I think that this theme is delivered in a balanced, credible way, much like the rest of this movie. One last thing. There are rumors floating around that Pixar is planning on making a sequel. As a fan of this film, I have 3 solid reasons why Pixar should never make a sequel to The Incredibles. Reason number 1. Just how has Pixar been doing with sequels lately? Yeah, I thought so. Reason 2. The Incredibles is a very neatly wrapped up and self-contained film. If you wanted to make a sequel that actually continues the story, you would have to jump through hoops of paranormal activity and proportions. And the most important reason is that Pixar cannot hope to make a movie this good again. This is the type of film that only comes around like once a decade. This is the nearest to perfection that Pixar ever got. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It is absolutely incredible.